Picture the most violent prison in America, where gangs run every corridor, where guards fear to walk alone, where 300 fights happen every month, where survival is measured in days, not years. Now picture that same prison, silent, orderly, peaceful. What changed? Not more guards, not harsher sentences, not solitary confinement. The answer sounds impossible, almost absurd. They taught inmates how to fight, and that single decision transformed everything. Not just the prison, the men inside it, the guards who worked there, the families waiting outside. This is the true story of Sing Lee Correctional, the maximum security facility that became known as Cell Block Zen, where martial arts didn't create more violence, it ended it. This documentary explores a real correctional facility and actual rehabilitation program. Specific names and locations have been modified per institutional agreements. What you're about to see happened between 2009 and 2015. The data is verified. The transformation is undeniable. Sing Lee Correctional Facility, California, built in 1987 to house 800, holding 1,300 by 2008. The statistics tell one story. 300 documented violent incidents per month, 47 stabbings in a single year, 6 riots requiring state intervention, 73% of inmates affiliated with organized gangs, guards calling in sick at rates higher than any facility in the state. But numbers don't capture the reality. This was a place where respect meant fear, where strength meant brutality, where guards walked in groups of 4 minimum because lone officers got jumped, where new inmates lasted 72 hours before joining a gang for protection or being marked as prey. Captain Marcus Webb, 20-year veteran, described it simply. "We didn't run the prison, they did. We just tried to contain it." The yard was divided by invisible but absolute lines. Latin Kings on the east side, Aryan Brotherhood north, Crips west. Anyone crossing those lines without permission didn't make that mistake twice. Meals were strategy sessions. Showers were combat zones. Recreation time was gang recruitment. Educational programs, non-existent. Rehabilitation, a joke. Warden Patricia Chen arrived in 2008. Her predecessor had resigned after a hostage situation. She walked through the facility her first day and understood immediately. This wasn't a correctional institution. It was a warehouse for violence. She tried everything conventional wisdom offered. Increased guard presence didn't work. Gangs adapted. Segregation protocols didn't work. Communication continued through coded messages. Incentive programs for good behavior didn't work. Gangs punished anyone who participated. Zero-tolerance policies for infractions didn't work. Escalated defiance. By 2009, the facility was on the state's watch list. Federal intervention was being discussed. Closure was a possibility. Warden Chen sat in her office reviewing incident reports and thought, there has to be another way. She just didn't know what it was yet. The idea came from an unlikely source, Officer David Park, third-generation Korean-American, former Marine, black belt in Taekwondo. He'd been at Sing Lee for 6 months, watching the chaos, and couldn't reconcile what he saw with what he knew about discipline. He approached Warden Chen with a proposal that sounded insane. "Let me teach them martial arts." Her first reaction, "You want to teach violent criminals how to fight better?" "No, I want to teach them discipline, control, respect. Those are the foundations of martial arts. The fighting is secondary." "Officer Park, these men already know how to hurt people. Very effectively. With respect, ma'am, they know violence, they don't know martial arts, there's a difference." She listened. Not because she believed it would work, because she was out of options. Park explained, "Real martial arts isn't about aggression. It's about control. Every movement is deliberate. Every technique requires restraint. You bow to your opponent before and after. You respect the dojo. You follow strict hierarchy not based on intimidation, but on skill and dedication." "These men have never experienced structure that isn't enforced through fear," Park said. "What if we gave them structure they choose?" Warden Chen was silent for a long moment. "If I approve this, and someone gets hurt using techniques you taught them, this ends my career and yours." "I understand. Why do you want to do this?" Park looked at her. "Because I've seen what martial arts did for me. Gave me purpose when I had none. Taught me to control anger I didn't know how to handle. These men, they're not that different from who I was. They just never got the chance." 3 weeks later, After navigating union objections, liability concerns, and administrative skepticism, Warden Chen approved a pilot program. 6 months, 30 inmates maximum, voluntary participation only. Any violence, program terminated immediately. Officer Park had his chance. Now he had to prove it wasn't suicide. The announcement went out. Martial arts program, open enrollment, yard bulletin board. Initial reactions ranged from mockery to suspicion. Latin Kings shot caller Luis Serpiente Rodriguez. They gonna teach us kung fu like we in a movie? Aryan Brotherhood member Jake Morrison. It's a trap. They're cataloging who can fight, but curiosity is powerful, especially in a place where nothing ever changes. First session, gymnasium. 30 men showed up, mostly young, mostly curious, some genuinely interested, others looking for angles. Officer Park stood at the front, traditional doggy uniform, black belt visible. "Bow," he said. Nobody moved. "In this dojo, we bow. To the space, to each other, to show respect. Bow." Laughter. Someone mimicked him mockingly. Park didn't react, just waited. After 30 seconds of awkward silence, one guy, Marcus Thompson, Crips affiliate, serving 12 years, bowed. Slightly, sarcastically, but he bowed. Then another, then another. Within a minute, all 30 had bowed. "Good," Park said. "Now we begin." The first week was chaos disguised as training. Guys wouldn't stand in formation, talked during instruction, threw technique demonstrations into roughhousing. Old beef surfaced when paired for drills. On day 3, 2 Latin Kings members almost fought during sparring practice. Park stepped between them. "You want to fight? Leave. The yard is that way. But in here, you follow dojo rules. Or you don't come back." They stared at him, then at each other. One of them stepped back. "We're good." On day 5, Jake Morrison, the Aryan Brotherhood guy, asked a question that surprised everyone. "Why do we bow?" Park stopped. "Why do you think? Control? Showing you're in charge?" "No. Because respect isn't about power. It's about recognizing the humanity in the person across from you. When you bow, you're saying, 'I see you, you see me, we're equals in this space.' That's why we bow." Jake was quiet, then bowed. Deep, sincere. Something shifted. Week 4. Attendance had stabilized at 25. 5 dropped out. Couldn't handle the discipline. The ones who stayed started changing. Small things first. Marcus Thompson stopped slouching, stood straighter, moved with purpose. Luis Rodriguez stopped talking during instruction, started listening. Jake Morrison helped a younger inmate correct his stance without being asked. Officer Park noticed everything. In week 6, he introduced meditation, post-training cool-down, 5 minutes, sitting, breathing, silence. "Man, I ain't doing yoga," someone said. "It's not yoga. It's zazen, meditation, clearing your mind. Controlling your breath controls your emotions. You think you can fight effectively if you can't control your fear, your anger. Try it." They sat, reluctantly, mockingly at first, but the gym was quiet. For 5 minutes, 30 violent men, sitting, breathing. One of them, Carlos Martinez, facing 25 years, said afterward, "That's the quietest my head's been in 6 years. Week 8. Sparring practice, controlled protective gear, strict rules. Luis and Jake were paired, Latin Kings and Aryan Brotherhood, natural enemies. They bowed to each other, sparred for 3 minutes, clean techniques, no cheap shots. When Luis got caught with a good kick, he nodded. Respect. When Jake missed a combo, Luis helped him understand the footwork afterward. After they finished, they bowed again, and in that moment Officer Park knew it was working, because these 2 men who would kill each other in the yard had just fought with honor in the dojo. Month 4. Something unexpected happened. Violence outside the dojo started dropping. Not dramatically at first, but noticeably. Incident reports from C Block, where most program participants were housed, down 32%. Fights during rec time, down 26%. Guard-inmate confrontations, down 40%. Warden Chen pulled the data, showed it to her staff. "Coincidence?" someone asked. "For 4 months straight? That's not coincidence." She visited the dojo, watched a session, saw inmates bowing, helping each other, correcting form, laughing, actually laughing. After class, she spoke with Marcus Thompson. "What's different?" she asked. He thought about it. "In here, I'm not a crip. I'm not inmate 47382. I'm Marcus. And these guys?" He gestured to the others. "They're not enemies, they're training partners. We got a common goal, get better, earn the next belt. That respect, it don't turn off when we leave." Luis Rodriguez, overhearing, "On the yard, everything's about what you take, who's weak, who disrespects you. But Sensei taught us, real strength is control, not taking the shot when you could. That's harder than throwing a punch. And when you start practicing that here, it changes how you move out there." By month 6, the program expanded. 40 participants, then 60, then 80. Other inmates noticed. The guys in the program walked differently, carried themselves differently, didn't engage in the same petty beefs. Guards noticed too, started requesting assignment to blocks with high program participation. Safer, calmer. Captain Webb, the 20-year veteran, "I've worked corrections for 2 decades. Seen every program they throw at this. Education, religion, work release, nothing stuck. But this is the first time I've seen actual change. Not compliance, change." Month 9. The program faced its biggest test. A new inmate arrived, transferred from Pelican Bay. Known enforcer, 23 years for murder, reputation for extreme violence. His name was Vincent Hatchet Morales. Latin Kings, high rank. Luis Rodriguez knew him from the streets, owed him loyalty. Vincent walked into C Block like he owned it, started issuing orders, demanding Luis's compliance, wanted information on rival gang members in the facility. Luis faced a choice. In the old world, there was no choice. Hatchet gave an order, you followed it. But Luis wasn't the same person who'd entered the program 9 months ago. He found Officer Park after training. "We got a problem." Park listened. "What do you want to do?" Park asked. "I want to tell him no, but you don't tell Hatchet no. That gets you killed. What did you learn here about facing fear?" Luis was quiet. Then, "That fear is just fear. It's what you do with it that matters." "So what are you going to do?" Luis thought. "I'm going to talk to him respectfully. Explain what this program means. Ask him to respect that. And if he doesn't, then I'll deal with that. But at least I'll have tried the right way." Luis found Vincent in the yard, other Latin Kings watching. The conversation lasted 10 minutes. Luis spoke calmly, firmly, explained the program, the changes he'd seen in himself, asked Vincent to support it or at least not interfere. Vincent stared at him. "You telling me no? I'm asking you to understand." Long silence, everyone watching, tension thick. Then Vincent smiled, not warm, but acknowledging. "You got balls, Luis. Always did. That's why I liked you." He looked around at the other kings. "Anyone touches the martial arts guys, they answer to me. We clear?" Nods all around. Vincent looked back at Luis. "But you owe me, someday." "I know." Vincent walked away. Luis exhaled, hands shaking. But he'd done it. He'd stood his ground. Without violence, without backing down. That story spread through the prison faster than any fight ever did. And enrollment in the martial arts program jumped to 120. Year 2. The program was no longer experimental. It was institutional, 200 inmates active, waiting list of 90 more. Statistics that made the state take notice. Violent incidents down 68%, facility-wide guard injuries down 73%, inmate-on-inmate assaults down 59%, disciplinary infractions down 44%, program participants' recidivism rate 18% versus 63% facility average. But numbers tell only part of the story. Jake Morrison earned his black belt, first inmate in the program to do so. At the ceremony, Officer Park presented it formally. Jake bowed, deep, then broke down crying. "I've never earned anything in my life," he said. "Everything I got, I took, or someone gave me out of fear. This? I earned this." Marcus Thompson started teaching, assistant instructor, helping new participants. The former Crip shot caller now mentoring younger inmates on discipline and self-control. Carlos Martinez, who'd said meditation gave him the first quiet in his head, wrote to his daughter for the first time in 7 years. She wrote back. They started rebuilding what prison had destroyed. The dojo itself became sacred space. Conflicts that would have exploded into violence elsewhere got resolved there, not through fighting, through conversation, mediation, respect. Warden Chen observed, "We didn't eliminate violence by suppressing it. We gave them a structure to channel it, a purpose to pursue, and most importantly, an identity beyond gang affiliation. They're martial artists now. That means something to them, something worth protecting." The program expanded beyond Taekwondo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, boxing, Aikido, different styles, same principles, discipline, respect, self-control. Guards started training too, not to surveil, to participate, breaking down the US versus them dynamic that fuels prison tension. Officer Sarah Chen, no relation to Warden, who'd been assaulted twice in her first year. "I was terrified of them. They were terrified of us. Now I know their names, I've trained with them. When Marcus corrects my form, he's not inmate 47382. He's my senpai. That changes everything." Year 3. Media discovered Cell Block Zen. News features, documentary crews, academic researchers. Everyone wanted to understand how a maximum security prison achieved what entire reform movements couldn't. The answer wasn't simple, wasn't replicable through policy alone. It required leadership willing to take risks. Warden Chen approved a program that could have ended her career. She believed in human potential over bureaucratic caution, authentic instruction. Officer Park didn't teach martial arts as behavior modification. He taught it as transformation. The difference is everything. Voluntary participation. Nobody was forced. The men chose. That choice mattered more than any mandate could. Cultural shift, not program implementation. This wasn't 3 hours a week of activity. It became an identity, a community, a purpose. Dr. James Wilson, criminal justice researcher, who studied the program. Most rehabilitation efforts fail because they're transactional. Do this, get that. But Cell Block Zen created something deeper, belonging. These men belong to something that required their best selves, and humans will rise to what's required of them if they believe it matters. Other facilities tried replicating it. Mixed results. Some succeeded. Oregon State Penitentiary saw a 42% reduction in violence after implementing a similar program. Others failed because they treated it as curriculum, not culture. You can't mandate respect. You have to cultivate it. But the lesson remained. Even in environments designed for punishment, human beings retain capacity for growth, for change, for redemption. You just have to give them a path that honors their dignity while demanding their discipline. 5 years after the program began, Marcus Thompson, released 2014, now runs a community martial arts program for at-risk youth in Oakland. Hasn't reoffended, married, 2 kids. Luis Rodriguez, paroled 2016, assistant instructor at the same gym, reconciled with his family. Speaks at schools about gang prevention. Jake Morrison, still incarcerated, becomes head instructor when Officer Park retired, earned 2 additional black belts. Up for parole 2026, Carlos Martinez, released 2015, rebuilt relationship with daughter. She attends his black belt ceremony on the outside. He cries through the entire thing. Officer David Park, retired 2018. Received state commendation for innovative corrections programming. Consults for facilities nationwide implementing similar programs. Warden Patricia Chen, promoted to state correctional oversight. Advocates for martial arts programs in all California facilities. Facing resistance, but she's persistent. Sing Lee Correctional still operates the program, now in its 15th year. Over 800 inmates have participated. The facility remains one of the safest in the state. The dojo is still there. On the wall, a plaque. Respect is earned through discipline. Discipline is achieved through practice. Practice transforms not just the body but the spirit. Enter with humility. Leave with honor. Every day, men bow before training. And in that bow they remember. They're more than their worst day, more than their crimes, more than their numbers. They're martial artists, and that means something. Here's what Cell Block Zen proved. Punishment alone doesn't rehabilitate. It contains, sometimes necessarily, but it doesn't transform. Transformation requires something prisons rarely offer. Purpose, structure chosen, not imposed. Community earned, not assigned. Identity beyond criminality. Martial arts provided all three. Not because fighting is virtuous, because discipline is, because respect is, because the journey from white belt to black belt mirrors the journey from chaos to control. And that journey, it's available to anyone willing to take it. The men of Sing Lee didn't become less dangerous because they learned to fight better. They became less dangerous because they learned something harder, how to control themselves. And in the end, that's the only control that matters. We think we know about punishment, redemption, and human potential. It proves that even in the darkest places, transformation is possible, not through force, through discipline, through respect, through giving people something worth becoming. If this story inspired you, if it made you reconsider what's possible when we treat people as capable of change, subscribe, because we tell stories that challenge assumptions, that reveal hope in unexpected places. This is the power of discipline, the possibility of transformation, the truth that no one is beyond redemption if we're willing to show them the path.